Alright, hello again everybody. So welcome to our next lesson here, Change and Challenge in the West. So our objectives and standards to analyze the impact of physical and human geography on the western region of the U.S. and to understand the struggles and challenges people face in the West. Take a moment there to read the standards. And our desired result. What changes and challenges did the West face? So the West after the Civil War, following the Civil War, the West is going to witness enormous changes. We see railroads, ranches, and mines that are going to transform the area. And many people are going to be attracted to the West for gold or silver. Now, tough towns. The environment of these towns in the West could be rough and tough. Now, miners, people who were, working in mines and stuff like that, did set up procedures for keeping the peace and handling justice, but there were some extreme situations which required self-appointed law enforcement officers known as vigilantes. Now, with the increase in towns and populations, eventually they will hire sheriffs and marshals, which will take charge. So, a boom in mining. In the 1870s, deep underground methods were used for mining. So, machines would drill deep holes into the earth to reach resources. Now, people worked underground in these dangerous conditions, but the arrival of big company mines caused water usage issues because large amounts of water were required for underground mines. Water runoff from mining also ruined water for farming and livestock as well. Transforming transportation. So we talked a lot about the railroads. So railroads in the West now connected eastern and western United States due to the Transcontinental Railroad. This here is the golden spike being hammered in the ground. Here, the last spike to connect the railroads across the country. Now, most railroads were built by private companies with large amounts of immigrants. Chinese and Irish immigrants suffered the most from these dangerous working conditions since they were typically employed by the railroad. But although there were dangerous conditions, the railroads did allow for the movement of goods and people across the country. There's going to be a new commerce in cattle. Another Western boom was the cattle industry. So we see vast amounts of grass, which allow for the growth of the cattle industry. Also, the cattle industry will be helped by the growth of the railroad because cattle will be able to be sent, or the meat from the cattle will be able to be sent to other parts of the country. So meat in Texas can be sent now to New York, Chicago, San Diego, wherever. Cattle were rounded up by cowboys, who then took them on long cattle drives to ranches, and many cowboys were a mixed group of people. They were whites, they were African Americans, and they were also Mexicans many times too. Now, their work was hard, dangerous, and low paying, but their work did help change commerce in the country to how we see it today as well. Now, living in the West. In the United States, the Great Plains were the last area to be settled by white people. Now, many people moved into the region for agriculture and for a better way of life. In 1862, Congress passed the Homestead Act, where the government offered land to settlers who lived on it for 5 years. They also had to dig a well and build a road. Now, both laws encouraged the arrival of more settlers of different backgrounds, including African Americans. Now, men typically worked the farms, while women helped with the home. Sometimes they ran boarding houses, laundry shops, or bakeries as well. But there's going to be trouble on the plains as well. Both physical and human geographics, made lives of settlers difficult. We have windstorms, droughts, blizzards, plagues of locusts, those insects that eat up all your crops, and then loneliness that also troubled people. Many could not afford lumber to build a home, so they had to make homes of sod, which is kind of like a clay, and mud. And these homes were typically dark, dirty, and dingy. Now, one thing that did help was barbed wire would help farmers keep livestock from wandering away, so that was kind of a plus in a way. Now, challenges for the Chinese. While African Americans struggled with discrimination and violence in the South, Chinese immigrants faced the same in the West. In 1879, California actually barred or banned businesses from hiring people with Chinese ancestry. Chinese immigrants also faced violence at work. Like we said, a lot of times they worked on the railroad, so you can see them here working on the railroad. They also faced segregated schools. In 1882, Chinese laborers were actually banned from entering the country with the passage of the Chinese Exclusion Act. Now, Chinese immigrants did fight back against discrimination, both in the courts and elsewhere, but again, unfortunately, they're going to see a lot of harassment and discrimination still remain. Now, troubles for Mexican Americans. Similar to other groups in the West, Mexican Americans also faced difficulty in the West. Although many Mexicans were guaranteed their land, to keep their land, at the end of the Mexican-American War, this rarely happened. A lot of times the land was taken away from them by settlers or by the government, but they did fight to keep their property rights, and they did form groups to protest as well. There's going to be, just a difficult lifestyle across the West, but it was beautiful. There will be conflicts between miners, ranchers, and farmers that often led to violence or sabotage, people ruining equipment or cutting barbed wires, so livestock will escape. The lack of water, whether it be for personal use or for business use, also caused conflict between people. Groups such as Chinese Americans and Mexican Americans faced discrimination and prejudice, and fighting and controversy still over Native American rights, which we talked about, and land also occurred as well. Alright, so our closure here. What changes and challenges did the West face? Think about how businesses are growing in the West, how transportation transformed the West, and think about how people are struggling with the different challenges, just living in general, or what challenges did other groups face as well. Alright, hope you have a great rest of your day or night. Let me know of any questions or concerns. Hope to talk to you soon.